Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to the Adobe XD Daily Creative Challenge. My name is Howard Pinsky, Senior XD Evangelist here at Adobe, and I hope you're all doing well on this Monday afternoon. If you are tuning in live here on Behance, let me know in the chat who you are and where you're tuning in from. We've got Cornell and Richard and Joshua and Ignacio and Sam and Juhi and Anahit and Porfirio. If I mispronounce anyone's name, I do apologize. Junaid and Ahmad and Aaron. Great to see everyone in the chat today. So we completed week 1 of the daily challenge last week, and today we're moving on to week number 2. And we're going to be tackling something a little bit different today. Not too different, but we are going to be transitioning into mobile, which is going to be really exciting. So let me go ahead and hop over to my screen. And we've got Ignacio from New Jersey, Joshua from El Salvador, and Junaid said it's 2:30 a.m. where he is. Ooh, well, thank you for joining me at 2:30 a.m. I'm asleep by like 10 at the latest. 2:30 is just, maybe when I was 18, I could have done that. Nowadays, not at all. Jay from Miami, Donna from Los Angeles. Great to see everyone from all over the world. All right, so behance.net/challenge/XD. Head on over there to get all the information about the Adobe XD Daily Creative Challenge. We also do these on Photoshop, Illustrator, and I believe we're also doing one on Premiere or some sort of video editing application this week or next week, or I saw something pop up somewhere, and I'm sure Jason's probably running that one. But check the schedule on Adobe behance.net/live. Junaid set the alarm for this. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Junaid. 2:30 in the morning, you set an alarm. You couldn't pay me to set an alarm for 2:30 in the morning. Man, where are my glasses? That's a good question. I don't know where my glasses are. I was at the doctor this morning, and I don't know where I put them. But anyways, here's how things work. So if you're brand new to this whole shindig, head on over to this landing page. You'll see a big blue button at the top. Press the big blue button. You don't have to, it's an optional step, but if you want to get notified when new challenges are released, you can press that button. And we're going to release challenges every single day, Monday to Friday, except the first Monday. It's more of a welcome stream. You can also join us in our Discord community chat, where you can also get information about these challenges. And we've got Gus in here posting all the information about each challenge, again, Monday to Friday. We've got about 50,000 designers in Discord, which is insane. 50,000 of you. Right now we have about 1,500 of you online, and you're all so fantastic. You can dive in here, ask questions, talk about design, get tips and tricks, see what's new in it, Adobe XD, including things like scroll groups and stacks. And I have a feeling that in a few months at Adobe Max, this new and XD channel is going to be flooded with really cool stuff. So stay tuned for that. Kristen asked, how am I feeling? I'm okay. I posted on Twitter this morning a little bit of an update of my COVID thing, and I feel okay, but my blood pressure is just through the roof. So my cardiologist is looking into that, but that's all I have for now. Yeah, you can ask questions, share tips and tricks. It's a fun place to hang out. And then you can watch us live. So I'm live, at least at the moment, at 2 o'clock Pacific time every single day during these challenges. Next week we have a new host, and I'm sure whoever that host is going to be fantastic. All of our hosts are great. And we also have streams all day, every day, which is great. And then you can share your work. You can share it in Discord like I just showed you, or on Behance using the keyword XD Daily Challenge. Aaron says, because obviously Howard can still see right now. I can. Thankfully, I don't need glasses. They're more blue light blocking glasses. Juhi's asking, when is Adobe Max? It's October 17th or October 20th. Go to max.adobe.com. It's somewhere around there. Completely free this year and completely online, which is going to be fantastic. And of course, we have some great product updates coming that are being worked on right now that I've been playing with a little bit. So stay tuned for that. All right, just to recap. So again, last week we started off with a web landing page, and we moved on to a live support chat widget using fixed elements, component states, and a tap trigger. And then we went on to a features overview using one of my favorite features, stacks, sign in and sign up experience. We ended with on Friday. That was a lot of fun. And then today we're shifting gears into mobile, and we're going to be designing out the home screen. So go ahead and grab the starter file if you haven't yet. There's a nice button right here. You can grab it. And if I hop over to Adobe XD, boop, there we go. This is what we're going to be starting with. And there's some inspiration down here if you want. Again, we're kind of moving with the finance theme, but of course, if you want to do something completely different, definitely do it. I saw a few of you in Discord moved away from that finance theme and did something fun and exciting. So definitely, have fun with this if you do feel comfortable in Adobe XD. So here's the artboard we're going to be starting with, and this one in particular is an iPhone-based artboard, but if you want to design for Android or Microsoft Zune, is that still a thing? Probably not. But if you want to design for that, I encourage you to, choose a different artboard if you want to. Ignacio saying, I missed last week, but glad I'm off today so I can join you all here. Thank you for joining us. And if you want, you can always go back and re-watch and participate in last week's challenges just by grabbing the starter file and watching the video. So they're all there for you. And down at the bottom here, we have challenges for days. Well, literally weeks and months. So you can always go back and do those too. All right, so here we go. Again, we're sticking with the finance theme. So for this artboard, we're gonna kind of go bold. And if you remember in the challenge last week, we introduced a lot of color. So what I'm gonna do for this is I'm really gonna start with that color. And now over here in my assets panel, I do have that lovely purple saved. So with the artboard selected, boop. You know what? I wanna make a few changes because that's a little bit, I don't know, I'm gonna just make it a little bit more purple. Something like that. That was a strange color. So I'm just going to tweak it just a little bit. And of course, you can tweak it in your assets panel as well by right-clicking and then edit. And I can just sample this color. And if I was using this color throughout my entire document, it would very easily just change it everywhere. All right, so on this artboard, there are a few things that we definitely want to add in here. At the top, starting off very simple, we may want a header, we may want a hamburger menu, and maybe a placeholder for a profile picture. So I'm gonna start actually by dragging out some guides, just so I can align things. And if you want to hover your mouse to the left or on the top, and if you don't see this, head up to the view menu, down to guides, and then you can either lock the guides or show the guides if they are locked. And I'm gonna just drag one out somewhere about 32 pixels. It's a pretty good, I can even go for like 24 possibly if 32 looks a little bit too far out. So let's go for 24. And I'm gonna do 24 on the right-hand side as well. And this will really allow me to, space things out evenly, align them, and also make sure that things aren't too close to the borders. So I'm gonna grab my, let's say my ellipse tool, just draw one out just like this, and this is going to be used for a profile photo. And you probably did see last week, I think I explored the UI Faces plugin. You can certainly use that again, or you can hop into Finder or Explorer on Windows and just grab a photo. So I've got some great looking photos here. I can just grab one, pop it directly into that photo there, double click to access the mask, and now I have a fun little profile photo. Now, since this is an iPhone that I'm designing for, you have to keep in mind that at the top of the display, there's a notch, the good old lovely notch. And at the bottom, there's the home indicator. So you don't want to put things too close up there because it's going to be hidden by the lovely notch and some of the elements that are up there. So I'm going to pop that right about there. That looks pretty good. And Richard says, I think Microsoft stopped making the Zune years ago. I think they did. Now over to the right, we can also add a hamburger menu. Now, of course, it's very easy to create a hamburger menu. You can use 3 lines, you can use the repeat grid, a lot of different things, but I'm lazy. So I'm gonna go into the Icons for Design plugin, just grab a menu and kind of pop it right about there. And all my guides help me out throughout this process. I'm gonna change the color to white, and it might be a little bit too large, so I'm just gonna shrink it down just a touch. Like that. And you have to make the sound effects, right? And what I've always stressed in the past, especially during these challenges, is when you're designing, you have the tendency, at least I certainly do, to zoom in quite a bit. So I'm zoomed in here, things are looking pretty good, but I lose that perspective. So just go ahead and hit that play button at the top, and you can kind of see how things are looking, just like this. And you can even move this to another monitor or over to the side. That way, as you're moving objects on your artboard, you can also see kind of like a bird's eye view over to the left over here. All right, so that looks pretty good. Now in the center, we may want to indicate what this specific screen is. Now this is the home screen, but it may also be your balance for this particular app. So Ignacio says, I'm digging the sound effects, thank you. I'm gonna grab the text tool and simply click, and I'll just type out balance, just like that. Now, this is way too big, so it's probably not going to work for this particular area. So we'll want to really shrink it down. Let's see what 24 pixels looks like. That's not bad. And considering our design is very bold, we may want to even crank up the boldness a little bit. That kind of looks fun. It's fun and exciting, and it's really in your face. Of course, depending on the application and the theme, you may not want to go that bold, but I think this is working. Now, maybe underneath this, we may want to display what the actual balance is. So I'll just, grab this text layer and hold down my Alt-Option key. Let me grab my Move tool. And I'm going to hold down Alt-Option and just drag it on down to duplicate it. And maybe we have a balance of, I don't know, $42,000. One can hope, right? Certainly not what's in my bank account. But I'm going to drag this up and make it a little bit, maybe I'll even make it like super bold, something like that. So it really stands out. And there's a little bit of difference between balance up here and the actual numbers down here. Richard's saying, what's the font of the day? I'm sticking with Sophia Pro. We did use that during last week's challenge. So to add a little bit of consistency, we're going to stick with that. All right, so we've got this top section looking fairly good. Now, maybe down here, there are a few other things we might want. Maybe we want some sort of a container. Once we start adding in actual content, which we're going to get to throughout the week, we may want to be able to separate it from the background. Adding content on this purple background is going to be a little bit tricky, but what we're going to do is we're going to grab our rectangle, and from the bottom, we're going to drag one up just like this. I'm going to leave a little bit of room at the top because we might add in some sort of like cards or some sort of shapes to display some additional information. All right, and we're going to round out the corners because it looks kind of fancy. There we go, and turn off the border, just like that. And Raphael is saying, I thought the challenge was making last week's work responsive. Is it a new app now? Sort of. Yeah, we're not basically taking last week and turning it into a web landing page for mobile. It's more of an app for this time, but we're sticking with the same theme, and we're also sticking with some of the same elements, possibly. So that's kind of the direction that we're going in. Joshua saying, my balance doesn't look like that. Yeah, most of ours doesn't. Now, what I did, if you missed it, let me just do this again. So I rounded out these corners, and it looks pretty fun, right? But down here at the bottom, we don't want those rounded corners necessarily. So I just held down Alt-Option, and I drag that back, and that one as well. And you can also enter specific values over within your properties inspector. So 0 and 0 will round out those two specific corners. All right. So we're going to leave this section blank for now because we will be filling it out throughout the week. But down here at the bottom, because this is a finance app, there's probably going to be a lot of sections to it. We may want some sort of a navigation bar. And for that, we're going to use our rectangle. But I'm also going to start naming some of these things and maybe grouping some of these things. So maybe this is the header at the top, right? Just to keep my sanity in check. All right, so we've got this. We're going to drag one out like that. And again, you have to remember that there's that home indicator somewhere right here at the bottom. It's somewhere about here. It's a little bit thicker than this, right? And it's a bit rounder. And it's about right here. So you don't want to put anything down there that your users are going to be clicking on or tapping on. So maybe I'll just leave that there just for now. Drop the opacity to about 20%, just so we know it's there. Of course, once the time comes that we're going to preview this, I'm probably just going to hide it in my layers panel. All right, so we've got this, and maybe to keep that bold color scheme going on, I'm just going to hop back into my assets and boop, click on this color to apply it for our navigation bar. Now, in terms of icons, there's a few that we may want in a finance. Maybe the home screen, obviously, wallet. Maybe once we get around to the payment system, we want a very quick way to initiate payments or receive payments, that sort of thing. Maybe some charts and a user profile. And this is where more icons will come into play. So let's say we want home, and the awesome library is fantastic. And if you haven't checked out this plugin yet, definitely check it out. Icons for Design gives you access to a ton of open source libraries that you can very easily apply to your projects. Now, typically when you are adding in icons like this, little buttons, you want to make sure that your icons are somewhere around the range of like 40 to 50 pixels. You don't want to go too big, at least the hotspot. So the actual icon itself could be a little bit smaller, but what you may want to do, let me just actually move this out of the way. What you may want to do is grab the rectangle and draw out, let's say, a 42 pixel box, right? And that will act essentially as your hotspot. So that way you know that when someone's trying to tap on your icons, there's going to be enough room, right? There we go. Grab this. So we can basically put this here. Let's go ahead and show our guides. This will be for our home. And we want basically 4 icons, including the one in the middle. That's going to be a little bit larger. And that's going to sort of look like this. We're going to get more into this later in the week. But it's going to kind of look like that, right? I'm going to change the color just a little bit. But I do want to put it there just as a placeholder so you can see. And Imran says the beard suits you. I've been very lazy lately, dealing with some health things. So I've been lazy, I haven't shaven. So I'm happy you like it. So we've got that one, and we want one over here, one over here, and one over here. And then what we can do is select all of these hot spots, right? Just holding down my shift key and clicking on them all. And then right up here at the top, we can go ahead and distribute them all horizontally. So that way they're all nicely distributed, they're all evenly aligned. And if I go to my layers panel, I can just make sure to group all these. These will be called icons. All right, so now I'm gonna reduce the opacity a little bit. And now what we can do is I can grab my home icon and just pop it, make sure it's inside of this group. Let me just make sure actually to bump this up to 100%. Just these ones I want to reduce opacity just so I can see them. And now I can make sure everything is nicely aligned. So we've got our home icon, and now we may want a wallet, for example. That one looks fun. Shrink that down, make sure my guides are helping me out, letting me know that everything is aligning really nicely. Again, we're gonna leave this one blank because we will get to that later on in the week. Over here, we might want a chart, for example. And let's see, we've got, this chart looks pretty good. Size doesn't look too bad. Could go down a little bit, possibly. And then we might want user profile over here. Now, of course, we do have also an area up here for a user profile, but you know what? We're gonna run with it, and I'll let all of you, I'm gonna type in use your imagination, and do something awesome up there. All right, and pop that right about there. So now, because we use these hotspots in the background, everything is lining up really nicely, and we can go ahead and just hide them now, just like that. Perfect. All right, again, let's take a look at how things are looking, and that looks okay. Fancy. And maybe just to fill this in so it doesn't look too weird, I'm gonna change this back to white, and maybe I'll just add a little bit of a border. There we go. And again, we're gonna get to this a little bit later on in the week. Perfect. Okay, things are looking pretty good. Now we might want to do a few things to this particular navigation bar. And I'm gonna make sure to put this into here. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start organizing this so that we can start using stacks, we can add some padding and that sort of thing. So I'm gonna grab this icon right here. So this is gonna be for home, and I'm also gonna grab the actual icon, group those together, call this home. And that will definitely help once we actually, turn this on and maybe reduce the opacity. We've got this nice hotspot hint, so when we wire it up in prototype mode, there's a nice 42 pixels that users can tap on, so they're not having some problems. We've got our wallet. This one's a user. I'm gonna group those, user, and then we've got the chart group, Command and Control G, chart, and then we've got our wallet, right? Wallet. And this one over here is going to be for the payments. Perfect. All right. So we've got all of these elements inside of our navigation bar, which I'm going to name. And now if we actually select the entire group for this navigation bar, we can go ahead over to the right and turn on stacking, which also automatically turns on padding as well. It also defined this stack as horizontal. So notice that these icons are laid out left to right or right to left, right? So now we can just dive in here. Let's say we wanted home to swap positions with wallet. We can just do that. We can do this if we wanted to. So there's a lot of different things you can do with stacking. You can also adjust the spacing in between individual icons if you wanted to, or hold down your shift key and adjust them all at once, which is fantastic. All right, so things are looking pretty good. We've got our balance at the top. We've got $42,000 in our wallet, but we may want to show off maybe what a card looks like in this particular application. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to grab another rectangle, and I might want to draw one out just like this. And this will be one of our, let's say, credit cards or virtual wallets or whatever it might be. I'm going to round at the corners a little bit. And for this one, it's going to be a little bit trickier to figure out exactly what color works, because we've got white and we have this weird purple in the background. It's a nice purple, but it's going to be a little bit difficult. So you really want to experiment, maybe like a pink, but also with a little bit of red, but maybe sucking out some of the saturation all of a sudden allows it to kind of work a little bit. But we might also want to, I'm going to bring this in just a touch, separate it a little bit more from this white container, right? And for that, what we could do is add a little bit of a shadow. Now, by default, the shadow is going downwards, at least on the Y axis. So let's just drop it so that it goes upwards. So it's about negative, I don't know, let's say -7, and then really want to blur the shadow a little bit. And if you want to get a little bit fancy, you can add in a touch of color, right? Something like that, and drop the opacity. So there's a very, very subtle shadow there, right? So if I turn it off and then on, it's subtle. And I talk a lot about shadows. The last thing you want to do is something like this, right? It's just an eyesore. So use the shadows very, just calm it down a little bit, right? And there we go. So that's looking pretty good for the other wallet. And maybe to let users know that there might be another wallet or card behind this, what we can do is we can duplicate this. I'm going to move it on up. Let's make sure to move it behind this card. I'm going to go ahead and name these in a second, and just maybe make it a little bit darker, right? Maybe add a little bit more color in there. And then to give a little bit of depth, just bring this in a touch. So now all of a sudden we've got sort of like this card stack going on, and we can duplicate this again, right? Move this inwards, and then drop that color a little bit. So now we have a few extra ones, right? And you can imagine a world where you're using components and states to click through many of these cards. There we go. And you can also drop the opacity a touch, maybe 80 or 90%, just to give a little bit of fun look to them. Calm shadows. Yeah, I agree, Aaron. And that's how things are looking so far. Now, of course, inside of this, you can also have additional elements, right? So maybe on top, to let you know what particular wallet this is, you might want some sort of a logo. And if this is like cryptocurrency, for example, this could be the Bitcoin logo for good argument. That's not a word, but I'm gonna run with it, right? Do something like that, and you can put the Bitcoin logo in there, and things will look pretty good. And then below here, wallet name, for example, there we go. And because this is, a sort of a modernized application, we can pull in that typeface we used last week, which is Babus New. And we can go to, let's say, the expanded bold, just to give it a little bit of a futuristic feel. So we've got our wallet name. And then we can also put our balance. So let's say 0.22 BTC for Bitcoin, right? Maybe extra bold. And this one will be a little bit larger. So there's a lot of interesting things you can start putting into these cards, and you'll want to make sure to actually group all these elements. So this will be front card, or we can just name it BTC and then make sure it's right about there. There we go. And I'm going to leave it up to you as to what you're going to put inside of these cards. And if you want to get really creative with it, you can definitely use components and states or different artboards to cycle through these various cards that are up at the top. Make sure this is a little bit larger. And I can also grab all of these and move them down a little bit if I did want to make a little bit more space, just like that. All right. So we accomplished a lot today. Let's take a look at how things are looking. And basically, we've started to lay out the the home screen for this application. Bram is asking, what's the font you're using for the word balance? That is Sophia Pro, one of my favorite fonts, in addition to Poppins and the one that I'm using here, which is Babus New. Hey Andrew, welcome. So we've laid out our home screen, including a title, the hamburger menu, the profile photo, the balance. We've got these cards with a nice calm shadow over here, this container, which we're going to start to fill out over the course of the week, and our navigation bar at the bottom. So I hope you all enjoyed that short challenge. Can't wait to see what all of you put together. I'm going to be checking out Discord a little bit later today. Stick around. We've got Andrew and Julia coming up in just a few minutes. Design in the dark. That sounds like a lot of fun. I really hope that they just turn the lights off. I think they actually use blindfolds, something like that. It's probably going to be weird knowing Andrew. I know he's in the chat. So stick around for that. You're not going to want to miss it. I'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place. And I will see you all next time.